Welcome to another episode of the Rugby League Outsiders Set of Six, where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy of Rugby League outside the heartlands. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl, and on this week's Set of Six we'll have a wheelchair Super League update from James Simpson. We'll be talking about the Castleford Tigers and Manly partnership, which has just been announced. And we'll also be talking on the phone to a Super League captain that played a huge part in the Magic Weekend.
Karl, it's good to be back. So obviously I was missing last week. Mark Austin filled in for us and did a cracking job. Thank you very much, Mark. And we'll hope to use your services again in the future. No, genuinely, he did a great job. How was it, Karl?
He did a great job, mate. And some of our highest viewed videos. So you're pretty much almost out of a job, I'd say. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, I don't want him back anymore then. So let's get into these stories. Obviously, it's post-Magic Weekend. So lots of stuff going on there, and what a great place to start.
Yeah, Magic Weekend took place this week at Ellen Road, and it was, as we probably predicted, a little bit, I don't know how you would put it. It wasn't all shining and superb like previous Magic Weekends have been. It was okay. It wasn't anything to shout about, I don't think.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the idea that I got from, looking at the different reports online and different social media posts, is that was ultimately the rugby was good and the day ran relatively well.
Yep.
But it was just missing that little bit of icing on the top and also missing like some of the social aspect of what the Magic Weekend has become known as. When I went there last year, it was a stag do.
Yeah.
And the idea of going on a stag do to the Magic Weekend this weekend, I don't know if that would have given the right atmosphere.
No, I mean, let's look at the positives first of all. 53,000, okay, it's an okay crowd. We'll get onto the crowd in a minute. It looked good on TV. There were 30,000 fans in there on day one. Because Ellen Road isn't as big a stadium as like St James's Park or Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. So on TV, it looked good. You tuned in and 30,000 fans there on the first day. Looked like a full stadium. Great. So that really, really good positive. The other good positive, London Broncos was the first game on the Saturday. There were 20-odd thousand in the ground just for that first fixture, which is... It's a little bit of you got to get your head around that a little bit, because you had Warrington as the last match. You had the Wigan Saints derby in the middle, but it felt like a load of people turned up for the first game. So, yeah, that was great that London and Hull played out in front of a massive crowd. And I think, being honest, the crowd was predominantly behind London. So, yeah, there was some positives about it, but there were some negatives as well, really. Yeah, I didn't go. I mean, I was up north that day and I chose not to go. Didn't really feel like the event that would draw me to a Super League. If it had been anywhere else, I'd have probably gone. But Ellen Road doesn't hold anything for me. It's no reason to draw me to that stadium. I think the fan zone, from what I've heard, was okay. But we all know that there's not much around Ellen Road. So, like you said earlier, it didn't have that party atmosphere, I don't think, that we've had. And if we look at the games, nobody can do anything about the games. We had the top 8 playing each other, so it was all lined up to be really exciting. But the games didn't really live up to the hype. I think the Wigan Saints derby was a little bit dull. The Warrington game wasn't amazing. Catalan didn't turn up. They were still in the south of France. The standout game I thought was probably the London game. But it wasn't the highest quality game. But there was just that felt like it had a lot more meaning to it than some of the other matches.
Well, I think it did. It was almost being pitched as like the £1 million game, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Because there was like so much riding on it, and I think because of like results earlier in the season. Like, a few people did have an eye on this. The neutral really had an eye on this.
Yeah.
And seeing what the result was. And obviously, both teams, like one team, London, have got nothing to lose.
No.
The other team, Hull, have got a lot to prove. You know what I mean? They've got a lot to sort of show their fans, perhaps losing a little bit. Why are you saying that? They're really well supported, but, they've got to start putting some performances on the pitch. And
John Wilkins said after the game that they played like a championship team. And then he said they played like a team that wouldn't even be at the top of the championship. And I think he's probably right, in all honesty. But it was great to see London with the fluidity. They threw the ball around. They played with a freedom that we've seen London play with before. It was quite exciting to watch. There were quite a lot of errors, but it was exciting to watch. And they kind of stole the show on day one, which you would never have said that with the Wigan and Saints derby on straight after it. But yeah, the Wigan and Saints derby just didn't live up to the hype. I mean, one thing I would say as well, looking at the Magic Weekend when they've had it this year, we used to have it at the start of the season, didn't we? It was like the opener to the season, I think. There's a lot of teams have got a lot of injuries right now, and I think that affected the quality of the play on the pitch. There's a lot of teams are nowhere near full strength. I mean, you had Saints probably, I think, had a different halfback pairing again. Wigan's halfback pairings was different. So pluses and negatives, I think.
Keeping it with London, obviously, one of the standout players this season for them has been Will Lovell. Now, we managed to catch up with him this morning and just get his take on what it was like at Magic Weekend, plus a few other questions all about London Broncos.
Well, let's get into it then. You kind of stole the show at the Magic Weekend, really. It's fair to say a couple of the games were a bit one-sided and not that exciting, but the London game, there were 20-odd thousand in the stadium at the time, and they were all cheering you on. It must have felt like a great occasion.
Yeah, what a fantastic advocate for the sport, and to have a non-traditional heartlands club having 20,000 people, screaming the names and chanting for them was fantastic. And yeah, obviously the boys did really well, and we've been building now for sort of 7 or 8 weeks. We sort of had a bit of a reboot halfway through the year and looked at ourselves quite critically. And it's credit to the playing group really, and to the coaching staff that we've sort of put this together really, and now we're in the position we are where we can kick on and make something of this year.
I mean, you've had a strong season all year round, really. Despite being sort of bottom of the table, you've not been too far off the mark, have you? Really? Do you feel like you're really starting to build now? You're getting some of those injuries back, aren't you? Some of those. Yeah.
That's obviously all part and parcel of it. We had a small squad to start with, and then you have a number of injuries within that. That obviously affects you. But yeah, even in some of the games, we've had 50 sort of points put on us. It's been tough because we're coming in and the messages have been that, we're not too far away. There's small parts in the games that we could just fix and amend those areas. We'd be there or thereabouts. And I think that's really sort of changed the way, we've thought as a squad this last sort of 8 or 9 weeks really. And then, we've paid critical attention to those areas, and we've, come off the back of it quite successfully.
Well, I just wondered if this was a game you'd sort of earmarked, a couple of weeks ago, as like, okay, we can do something on a big stage here. Is that the case?
Yeah, I won't lie. It's one of those, we obviously knew it was coming up. Magic, obviously at Ellen Road, what an occasion that would be. And, from obviously we went very, very close when we played them at their place early on in the year, and then to beat them at Wimbledon. We sort of knew that, this is a real chance for us to get 2 points. And really, kick on for the rest of the year. So, yeah, it's something we looked at. But obviously, each game we take, we look at and we, do as best to compete in and win. So that'll be the challenge this week, with a tough Leeds side that are going to come down to us. So yeah, every game as it comes, but no, definitely one that obviously we looked at.
I just wanted to talk to you about the playing style of London. Your team, that you're quite ambitious. You like to throw the ball around quite a lot. Is that part of a sort of a Mike Eccles ethos?
No, I think you go back to a bit of the DNA of the club. Really, obviously Mike's been a part of it for a long time now, and coaches like Danny Ward, Jamie Langley that have been involved in previous years, Hendo. So you could trace it all the way back, and even I'd say further back to when the Broncos were first formed and the way they used to play then. And obviously, as a playing group, we try and hold on to some of that identity, and it's something that we want to do, the way we want to play and move the ball. Obviously, with our squad this year, we're probably not the biggest pack, so you have to play to your strengths. We know we've got some strike out wide. So you've got to play to your strengths, like I say.
Well, I mean, in terms of being outside the heartlands, I mean, you couldn't be a greater example of that. And I read that you sort of you cut your teeth at Northampton Demons. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, long time ago. Patrick Wilson got me down with Richard Highton. They were at Northampton Demons, thanks to Andrew Quirk, who put the club together, really. And I just used it as a bit of a keep. I was playing rugby union through the summer. In the winter, sorry, and then the summer I'd play obviously the league, and I just took to it, and before I knew it, there was an opportunity down at Harlequins Rugby League then, under 16s, and was successful and played a number of scholarship games, and then from there it just really took off into the 18s program, and before I knew it, I was training with the first team. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, obviously. Within that, I've had injuries and setbacks like everyone has. But I'm really pleased, for someone who's outside the heartland, from where I've come and where I've got to, and to now be obviously captain of the club and back in Super League, and with a chance of not finishing bottom and righting a few wrongs, which would be great.
Well, there's just one sort of thing I'd like to ask you. I know it's obviously been a little bit difficult for London this year, and I'm sure that there's Super League clubs at the minute picking the team apart, I know Mike sort of said it's quite difficult knowing that some of your players are not going to be there next year. You don't know really what's going to happen at the end of this season. How's the camaraderie between the group? You seem to be quite a close knit group, even though you've gone through quite a bit of adversity.
Yeah, I think that's part and parcel of it. When you come and sign for London, you have to embed yourself within that squad, and we are a tight-knit group. Maybe at the start of the year we weren't tight enough, and we've definitely picked up on some of the more social things that we can do together, and I think fans and journalists are seeing that now in the way we're coming across. We're very, very team focused. There's no sort of superstars in our team, and we work really hard for each other. In terms of some of those boys moving on for next year, I don't really think it affects what we're doing, because we're just so focused on the immediate, and that's my message to the boys is we've got 5 games left now. This is the team for this year. People are going to go their separate ways. We have to enjoy it. You have to make the most of this situation, and what a story it could be if we pull it off. Fantastic that some of those boys have gone on and got themselves deals here, there, and everywhere, and we wish them all the best for the future. But if you come into London, you know what you're signing up for. You buy into the culture, and that's part of it. Will,
just last question from me. I wonder what has been your standout sort of memory from this season? I
think a couple of those first games, just seeing so many of the local sort of London lads that I've seen come through the system, and I've obviously played with them in Champ, like watching them obviously, going up to the likes of DW and Headingley and things like that. That will always be a standout for me, making their Super League debuts, etc. I think a real turning point was that belief when we beat Hull FC at home, and I could just see, the pure delight on some of the boys' faces that they'd obviously won the game, but it was, then the belief then, right, who's next, who can we get? So, yeah, that'd be my standout too, really, the young fellas for London, and then obviously, that belief, pouring through the squad after Hull FC.
Oh, well, it's been great to speak to you. Obviously, we wish you all the best of luck going into the remaining games of this season. I know that you've caught the hearts of not just people outside the heartlands, but plenty of people in the heartlands as well, mate. I think there's a lot of people rooting for you at the minute, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. Obviously, it's noted. A few of the boys obviously said about the exposure that you've given us with the.
Karl, so what did you take from that?
The enormous amount of pride that he takes in playing for London Broncos. He's incredibly proud of his players that he's playing with. A lot of players from outside the heartlands, like he said on the interview, given that opportunity to play in that big stadium with a full house and really showcase their talent, which I think they really did. And but like we said previously, it was a great game.
Well, if you're interested in London Broncos, stay with us, because we've got another couple of talking points later in this episode where we're going to talk about London. Just coming back to the Magic Weekend. So a couple of things where I think like this is the biggest crime, all right, if we could have called it a crime, is you had the likes of you and your family, both, all massive rugby league fans, albeit you support Bradford Bulls, but we'll let that ride, who had the opportunity to go, but didn't go, chose not to go. That is just like criminal. Like, we should be attracting every rugby league fan in the country to this, what is in essence a rugby league festival at the highest level.
Yes.
And the other thing as well is we also then need to be getting those rugby league fans to be bringing their friends and family that perhaps have never experienced rugby league before. So that's not happened. Now, does that, in your opinion, Karl, is that solely about the location, or is it also is the overall experience? So, for example, the on-pitch entertainment, or the running, lineup, or the fan zone. Is it all one encompassing problem?
Yeah, I think you can break it down, can't you? But I think the main reason that it didn't have the draw was the location. Magic Weekend to me has always been it should be about showcasing the sport in different areas and drawing new fans into that ground. I don't think having the Magic Weekend at Elland Road would really have drawn any new fans to that to the sport this weekend. And when you're spending so much money on putting an event on like that, you need to be attracting new fans. And therefore, I'm a really big advocate of this travelling around the country, going to places it hasn't been before, going to non-rugby league cities and getting new fans involved. Newcastle has always been a success. I know they couldn't have it in Newcastle this year, so I'm not saying it should have been in Newcastle. Yeah. But Newcastle's been a success. It's brought new fans to the game, so it's got to go on the road. I don't think we can ever have it not right in the middle of the heartlands again. And the other reason, and you spoke about this off air, with it being in the heartlands and quite local for a lot of people, they only turned up to watch their team. Whereas, like you said before, if you have it in Cardiff and people are having to travel there, they'll probably go for the 2 days and watch all the teams, or certainly watch a lot more of the game. I've seen loads of comments from like Wigan fans or Saints fans saying, I literally, I just turned up to watch my team and then I went home. That isn't what Magic Weekend is all about.
So talking about crowds, then obviously you're talking about like not encouraging new fans. Do you think it's like repelled current fans? And what is you're doing a bit of digging on the crowd?
Well, it has 100% because the RFL have said it was a success. So how they measure success, I don't know. It maybe it's commercial revenue. Maybe it was cheaper to host it at Elland Road, and therefore the RFL have made more money from it. So maybe they're measuring it that way. I don't think they can say that the crowd was a success. There was 53,100 or so there. And I've sort of looked at all the previous Magic Weekend, and it's one of the lowest ever Magic Weekend crowds, the aggregate. So I'll go through a few of them. So started in Cardiff, didn't it? 58,000 in 2007, 63,000 in 08, 09 in Edinburgh, 60,000. 2010, this was the lowest in Edinburgh, 51,000. So this one that's just gone was a second lowest ever crowd. Cardiff, 60,000. And then they hosted it in Manchester for a couple of years at the Etihad. So you sort of getting 63, 62, 64,000. And then when it went to Newcastle, you were sort of getting crowds of like 67,000, 68,000, 65,000. Compared to 53, that is a massive jump. I can't see how we can be saying that that's a success. So it speaks volumes that we've had one right in the middle of the heartlands, and it's been one of the lowest crowds we've ever had. So clearly it hasn't captured the imagination of our current fans, and it hasn't really brought new fans in either.
So I suppose, in terms of success, yes, they held 6 games of rugby league, involved all teams, attracted fans from all over the country. So in them terms, it is a success. But when you're looking at like other indicators of how the day has gone, how the weekend has gone, it's falling a little bit short.
Yes. So I suppose that takes us to looking at the next Magic Weekend. Where's it going to be? One point I would have made actually. So somebody put this on Twitter on our feed, and they basically said at the end of the Magic Weekend, the tickets should have been on sale straight away for the next one, and anyone who went, it happens in loads of sporting events. It should already be sorted out, and you should get a discount. If you went to this Magic Weekend, if you buy straight away, you get a discount. Great idea. So it should already be sorted out. The fact that it isn't is a little bit worrying, really. I understand that football teams have got to check their availability for the stadium, but they should at least be saying, look, it's going to be here. It's going to be on in this month at least. So the options that are being drawn forward from Roger Jones, he sort of said Cardiff, Nottingham, Newcastle, Dublin or Paris at a push. And I think there's some great options there. I'd really like to see it go to Nottingham, somewhere new.
Yeah, Nottingham would be a great shout. You know, I think you're looking at all them, and this is how I gauge it, right? Primitive as it is, right? I think, would that make a great location for a stag do? That's what we're talking about, isn't
it? It is, yeah.
So, you know, and I'm looking at all them, like Cardiff, yes, I've had some great nights in Cardiff. You know, Nottingham, immense. What was the others?
Newcastle,
I was there last year. Dublin, phenomenal.
Definitely.
You know, and...
Paris, maybe.
Paris, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, I don't think...
I'm not sure about Paris, actually.
I don't think we'll see it in Paris.
No, Paris doesn't seem right.
No.
You know, yeah, I don't know. But the other four, great contenders. If you think there's any others that we should put to the RFL or whatever, or, you know, whatever suggestions, where do you think this should go?
Interestingly, we threw Dublin out ages ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Just said Dublin would be a great idea.
Well, it just makes sense, like you say, you know, pick points where, you know, it could be, I mean, even like the Big Bash in Blackpool. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, places where it's renowned for a stag do. You know, you're onto a bit of a winner.
Party carnival atmosphere. That's what you want, don't you, from your Magic Weekend? If we're going to keep it, which it is going to be staying by all accounts, needs to be in a party destination, 100%.
Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, so from the Magic Weekend, then we're heading east to the East of England competition.
Yeah, so Anglian Vipers this week defeated Hemel Stags 50 points to 10 to become the champions of the East. There's some big significance for this one as well, because Anglian Vipers, as we know, we spoke to them earlier on in the season, they are one of the teams that are pushing to be in League One next year. So the fact that they've come out such convincing winners of this game is a positive, I would have thought.
Yeah, it definitely stands them in good stead. So... from here, then, where do they go from here?
Right, so I'll break it all down now as what the bigger meaning for this is. So, Anglian Vipers will now take on Telford Raiders in a semi-final to judge who goes into the. It's called the Harry Jepson Cup. So it's almost like a national competition for the southern sort of regions, I would say. That's going to be played at Telford, so we'll get to go and watch that. I'm just going to be really interested to see how Anglian Vipers play against Telford. Two teams in different areas of the country, see how different styles play out against each other, and then the winner of that is likely to play either the West Warriors Academy or Brixton Bulls, but I'm led to believe that West Warriors can't proceed to the final of the Harry Jepson Cup because it's their A team. It's not because they have a team in the SCL. So it's likely to be either Anglian Vipers or Telford Raiders against Brixton Bulls in the Harry Jepson Cup final, and that's exciting. I can't. It was such a great tournament last year. The fact that we got it back again this year and it's just building is great. And then that will also be played on the same day as the Southern Conference League final, which we've been keeping an eye on all season. And there was a bit of a big win this weekend. Bristol All Golds pulled back a 30-point deficit to beat London Chargers this week. There were only 15 minutes to go. They were 30 points behind. They ended up coming out 42 points to 32 winners against London Chargers. So the semi-finals for the Southern Conference League look like this. You got West Warriors versus London Chargers, and then Hammersmith Hills Hoist versus Bristol. They're the semi-finals for the Southern Conference League. You've got to say that West and Hammersmith are they are the two favourites to progress to that final. So yeah, going to be a great day's rugby when we get to the proper business end. Interestingly though, this is where it starts really getting. You've got to have a strong squad at this point because rugby union will be fully back on the menu by this point. So this is rugby league's test in playing a big tournament, a national cup tournament like this, to make sure that the players are sticking with rugby league and not going back to the rugby union teams too early.
Yeah, and if you don't know much about these teams, we have done a load of different interviews and episodes on some of these teams, the Brixton Bulls, we've spoke to the Anglian Vipers in the past, so check out our channel and you learn more about those teams. Now we've got some international academy news and Scotland Academy.
Quite an interesting one, this. Scotland played North East this week. It was a North East select side, let's shall we say it. But there was no professional or semi-professional players in this Scotland side. So they're going to be travelling to Holland, I think, next week. So this was like a warm-up game for that trip. So it was essentially a Scotland academy side, but it wasn't labelled as an academy side. So I think it was really great that you've got players from like Glasgow and Edinburgh getting that shot to represent the country. How big is that? It's huge. So I know we've had some problems with International Rugby League this year, especially with the home nations. We haven't seen them play. But it's great that this local talent is getting the opportunity to represent Scotland. And I also think someone made this point to me this week that it's a really big draw away from rugby union. Because if you're a fringe rugby union player, but you're never gonna make the Scotland side or play representative, if you're playing rugby league, the Scottish division's not huge. And you've got an opportunity to wear that Braveheart shirt. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, any indication of how many students were in that team?
I would have thought most of them would have been, to be honest with you. It was quite a young side. They came out anyway, winners 40 points to 12, but like I say, I don't think the result really matters. It was just the fact that these lads are getting the chance to represent Scotland. And then there is some other sort of news from around the international calendar. You got Aberavon Fighting Irish came out 21 points to 18 winners in the Welsh Cup final this week. So I think South Wales Jets were probably favourites to win that one. So the fact that they've been beaten is interesting. And then we've got another international. Now this is a big international. It's full on international. You got Wales taking on Jamaica on the 15th of October. The Lexton Knoll in Neath, and this is essentially a warm-up game for the World Cup qualifiers that will be taking place the week after. So that's great to see both Wales and Jamaica taking to the field.
Yeah, and there'll be some stars there. There will be some stars on that pitch. So if you can get down to Neath, it's quite accessible for a lot of people. Get down and watch that. You and I will definitely be aiming to get there.
Yeah, this is Wales's first game since 2022, so it's terrible that we haven't had an international since then. But we've discussed that on previous shows. So anyway, Wales will be playing. They'll be playing Serbia, and France will be playing Ukraine in the World Cup qualifier, which we mentioned on a previous show. So yeah, at least they're getting a fixture in before, and I think Jamaica are also playing. I think they're playing Canada. A week or two after that. I might have got that wrong, but it's a warm-up game for them as well. So, yeah, International Rugby League back on the calendar, thank God. Yeah, positive steps.
Yeah, good luck to all those making their international debut and involved in that game there. So, moving on from there, speaking of internationals, we've got a former wheelchair international, World Cup winner no less, and that's James Simpson MBE.
Yeah, we spoke to James Simpson about Leeds Rhinos have come top of the Wheelchair Super League. There's still 2 games to go, actually. They've been crowned with the League Leaders Shield. We spoke to James earlier.
Okay, we're going to talk to James Simpson MBE, the head coach of Leeds Rhinos. Now, you may get a little bit of interference with this interview, but stay with it. It's really interesting, and it'll only last a couple of seconds, so let's get into it.
So, James, really great season so far. You've played 6, won 6, undefeated. Been a lot of close games, haven't there, this season? Really tight Wheelchair Super League this year.
Yeah, I think when you reduce the league down to 5 teams, but 5 really competitive teams, the games are going to be like that. Naturally, players have gravitated to wanting to be in those top teams. So some of the players from maybe the championship clubs, once dual reg was thrown out the window, they signed for Super League. It bolstered up all the squads, really. But yeah, a lot of games. We've won 2 games in the last set of the game. In the dying moments, one game it was a conversion, Nathan Collins from the touchline to win it in the last minute. So yeah, the last couple of games we've won in the dying moments. It's been really competitive. From our players, we knew there were less games, so it frustrated them a little bit, but without them knowing, I orchestrated a few things early on in the season to put them on, maybe take players off when they were performing really well, because I wanted them to find ways to win really competitively in really, really resilient ways, knowing that at the back end of the year we're going to, and they delivered in every single aspect of it. They've all performed brilliantly, and I'm really proud of them all.
You mentioned your players there, James, but obviously, you've said that a couple of close games, and we sort of identified that Nathan Collins would be really important for this year because it is coming down quite often to those kicks and conversions. Would you agree to that? And what would you say about that?
Absolutely. Nathan's kick conversions in front of 5,000 people in a World Cup final. He's done it under the utmost pressure you can think of in a game. So you can totally trust him to pop those two over. And I don't, as a coach, I don't get involved. If he's having an off day, he'll just palm it off to someone else for a few kicks and then come back in himself. I don't dictate any of that. I leave that to him when he's confident and he wants to go for it. But yeah, he's done it on the biggest stage. I know that he can knock two over whenever he needs to. But it's definitely come down to it. I mean, we played Halifax the other day and I think Wayne got 9 from 9. So if you're not meeting that toe-to-toe with those 2 points, then that's where you're going to drop points. But Nathan can keep up with anyone else kicking in the league.
James, you're in a bit of a fortunate position now where you're already guaranteed your playoff spot. Are you looking to bring in a couple of different players, giving them a bit of big game experience, or are you going to carry on rolling with the squad that you've had?
Well, we've done that all year. Yeah, it's definitely something I'm still going to do. Like when I reflected on last year and I looked back as a coach and what I needed to change, it was our depth. Becky Wilkinson came into the team this year. She played a full 80 minutes at the weekend against Halifax, and up until that point, minutes max in a Super League game. We've got Cam, who's come in the squad this year, who he played 2 Super League games, but unfortunately he was a student, so he had to go home over summer. So we are doing that already. My big reflections last year is we need more players, more depth. We need, when players are injured or they're on holiday or they have commitments, we need people who can step in that, and that's what I'm really proud of. We're not just a 5-player team. We're an 8-10 player squad now, and that it's fantastic for me as a coach to give those fringe players more time, like in training and on the pitch as well.
You've obviously, like Karl said, you're pretty privileged in that you can just sit back and watch to see who else gets sort of into the playoffs now.
Yeah.
But, when all said and done, like in the next round, who would you kind of like to face?
To be honest, there isn't. Each team has a strength and each team has a weakness. And I've been to watch a lot of the games. Like I was at London Halifax yesterday. I was at Wigan, London a few weeks ago. I've been going along to a lot of the games as a fan and just someone who kind of wants to scope out the teams. But every team has a strength and every team has a weakness. So I think I'm big on making the team adaptable. It's just on whoever we draw, whoever ends up in that 4th spot and we draw, we've just got to be able to adapt and be ready for that team. I'm not putting all my eggs in like, I hope we get this team, I hope we got that team. We just got to adapt to it and we've got to be ready for that team and what that team brings to the party. But I think between 2 and 5, I think that it's still not set. Any team can land anywhere. I mean, Hull got a win at the weekend. They're sitting 5th, but they could come 3rd. It is all coming in these last 2 rounds for the teams 2 to 5. It could go either way for anyone.
And James, if you was reviewing the season, the full season, not just Leeds Rhinos, but the Super League seasons as a whole, generally, how do you think it's gone this year? Do you think the right decision has been made, reducing the number of teams? Do you think it's gone in the right direction?
Game more competitive. Every single game is a do or die game.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're playing like cup footy. If you lose one game and another team wins a different game, then you could drop 2 or 3 places in the league table. And I've been an advocate for making the league smaller and more competitive. But I'm more than happy to say when I think I was wrong. Now that we've done it and we've had the league smaller, I do think we need to go back up to more teams.
Yeah.
The variation of who you're playing isn't actually that big. Whereas if we went up to, I don't know, if we bounced back to like 8, made those 3 teams, they're still going to get each other. And then you could split the top leagues like a 4 and 4, at the back end of the season. But we've gone small. The games are competitive. The players are coming on fantastic, but we're kind of leaving behind low now some of the players in those leagues who could be really good. are getting left behind in like playing games, but not at the highest level. So maybe next year we tweak it a bit and we go bigger, but that's out of my pay grade.
James, I know you're not involved. I know you're not involved with the England setup as such anymore.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're going to be looking towards the England game v France later on in the season. I was just wondering how does the French game compare to the English game with how the leagues are structured?
The leagues, the French leagues, there's a lot less teams in us. It's set over 2 leagues, and their top league, which is their current Super League, I think that's only 6 or 7 teams.
Yeah.
But Catalans just trounce everyone. Catalans are a bit of a super team over there. You know, people want to move to the south of France and live, so they kind of dominate that league. So I think they've won every French league for the past like 10 years or something. But they kind of dominate. So it's more about who can go toe to toe with them at the end of the year. But yeah, the French league, it's kind of like Catalans, whereas over here we've got other games could go either way, like on the day. And in beating someone at the weekend, it's like it could. It's very different, the kind of way.
And what would you like to see happen next year? I know you've said maybe an increase in teams. Surely you want to see a bit more of this wheelchair Super League on TV. I know we do.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think it's been strange this year. Like last year, which were great for coverage. We had sportsmen, we had all the teams together, but they weren't very good in-house audiences, you know, because we moved to different places.
Yeah.
So it would be like a bit of a hybrid. Try and get more games on, but it's the promotion at the moment. It seems to be down to the clubs to do a lot of the self-promotion, and that's all right for us at Leeds. We have a foundation that can take the brunt of that, but some of the other clubs don't. So with the media, the awareness of it, like if you look on our league app, and they have like the women's roundup, League One roundup, Championship roundup. Like every round, there isn't anything out there that's like just keeping people up the weekly ins and outs of the wheelchair teams.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fallen on the teams to do. And John Seeger, who's going above and beyond by himself. You know, John Seeger's going from Kent up to northern cities to film games and make highlight videos himself. Beyond, but yeah, it seems to be this year we've had a bit of a drop off with the media and the awareness from like a central position, but to get ramped back up like we had last year, like the games on Sportsman, they're still ticking over with views. People are still watching them.
Yeah.
And they were great. Like the arenas went to a great, but we need to be back at home to get home audiences, but then have games on TV as well. We've got to find a bit of a happy medium with it. Yeah,
I mean, it seems a little bit unfortunate. I mean, the England international, like I've seen you say previously on a different show, it was at the Leeds Arena last year. It was an absolute spectacle. I was there. It was one of the events of the Rugby League calendar, I thought, last year. I'm really disappointed that we're not going to have that fixture in such a venue this year. I'm sure you share the same opinions. I mean, how's it felt around the rest of the wheelchair community?
It's the same, especially England players who are currently in the squad. We're in Leeds. And we had like 3,000, I think, in first direct. And I've been part of the team sports halls to then at the World Cup, we were in these massive venues, these arenas, to then being in an arena again, well, the players were, to now going back to like a sports hall. It is a big sports hall, but it's a tennis court, where it is a bit of a shame that we've gone from this like big, amazing arena that there's bands playing in and like you know, Brian Cox there doing his big like astrophysicist shows and all this, to now back into a sports hall.
Yeah,
it's a shame we've lost that high ticket kind of arena. And I know it's intimidating for the French. Like they come over here and it's intimidating for them to turn up to there and see all the stuff on show and the crowd and everything. Whereas a sports hall doesn't hold that like that gravitas and things like that. That the players have got used to now at England. James,
I just wonder who from your squad you've really enjoyed kind of watching and is one to watch for the future.
Well, it's a tricky one. My team is made up of absolute phenomenal players who, like, they all shine in one way or another. But it's for me, they dig in every week and they give it everything they've got, and they will never get the applause for it. So, like Jodie, the captain, leading from the front, she plays 80 minutes of every game. Hat-trick a game. She leads from the front. She tackles to be up or never be up for anything like that. That'll go to the flashier players, but every single player in that team I could pick for something. Nathan Collins does what Nathan Collins out there passing the ball, but the team is just made up of a great group of players, and it'd be remiss of me to pick one and stand them out. We're all just fantastic group of players. That's a cop out, I know, isn't it?
No, not at all. No. It speaks volumes, doesn't
it? James, thank you for calling in. We wish you all the best of luck with the rest of the season, and we're looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds. In all honesty,
anytime, mate. You know that. Give me a shout, and I'll.
Good to talk to you, James.
Cheers.
Take it easy.
I always love talking to James. He's always very, very insightful, very candid. So what did you take from that, Karl?
Just how competitive wheelchair rugby league's been this year. I knew it anyway. I've been keeping an eye on the results, but there's games going down to the wire pretty much every week, and there's not much between any of these teams in the Wheelchair Super League. Interestingly, you don't have a strong contingent of England internationals in any one side, so they're spread out around the whole competition. You have like 2 or 3 England internationals in each team, and it just makes for such a strong competition. Interestingly, he actually thinks should be probably adding teams to that tournament next year.
So we'll, of course, keep up with the wheelchair news and keep you informed on that. So make sure you hit subscribe and click the notification bell to get updates of our latest episodes, and we'll keep that news pumping forward. Moving on now. So on to the women's game, and London v Cardiff. It's going to be a really, really interesting final.
Yeah, the 2 top teams in the South, they've been the 2 top teams in the South for quite a while, and they've really been runaway winners this year. Big gap between them and the other teams. They've played each other, both beaten each other this year, so it stands instead for what should be a great final. And we caught up with London Broncos head coach Colin Baker.
Okay, short interview with Colin Baker, the head coach of the women's team at London Broncos.
Thanks very much for the invite, guys. Really appreciate it. There's lots to be excited about from the women's point of view. Obviously, we've got in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we've got the Championship South Grand Final against Cardiff Demons, our old adversaries. So obviously, most of our efforts and energies are sort of geared up towards that, really. In addition to that, it's been quite a long season already, but we're hoping it doesn't end anytime soon.
Colin, you've finished joint top of the league, I believe, with Cardiff. I think have you both just dropped the 1 game this year so far?
Yes, yeah, we both scored 1 off each other. So we went down there a few weeks back and they beat us, and I think a couple of weeks before that we beat them at home. So yeah, I think it was 12 points in the end, points difference. So yeah, it was pretty tight at the top, and I think that sort of kind of reflects where both teams are really. I think there isn't a lot between the 2 teams on any given day, really. And, I think from the game's point of view, I think that's quite exciting that you've got, a strong team in the South Wales and you've got a strong team in London as well. So, really tight at the top there.
It's fair to say that you two, get my words out. You 2 teams are the 2 strongest sides by quite a country mile, really, aren't they? It's sort of a race to the top. After the final, then I know you've got a chance to potentially push for Super League. I know you're way off that at the minute. How does it happen? Is it the South take on the top team from the North?
Yeah, you are correct, mate. It's so what would happen is the winner of that Championship South final will play off against the winner of the Northern Championship, which is for a sort of title in its own right. That'll be for the be the national champions, I suppose, national championship champions. Bit of a mouthful, that one. And then the winner of that game will have a promotion playoff against the team that finishes bottom of the Super League. So I think the way that would look at the moment, I think Lee Leopards have been the pretty convincing champions of the Northern Championship. I could be corrected on this, but I'm pretty sure they haven't lost a game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like they've had too many close games either. So, they've obviously been blazing a trail through that competition. And then I think it's Featherstone that currently sit in that position in Super League. So, so that's the pathway, if you like. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. for either of us to get there, obviously. But it's nice that there is a pathway that's sort of clear and transparent, really.
You'll obviously be working on a game plan, to perform your best. But what's kind of going in your favour for this Matt?
Well, I think we've had some good continuity this year, actually, which I think is probably the first season, the first of our 4 seasons, where we've had like a reasonably settled team. So I think that's going to go for us in our advantage. Obviously, we haven't got a game for a couple of weeks, but in between, which isn't great from our point of view. But I appreciate that our friends over at Cardiff Demons are in the same boat as well. So I think it's going to be one of those games that one of the teams will prepare slightly better than the other team on the day, and will probably come out the winners. There's very little between the two teams. We've got different strengths, different weaknesses, but I think when you look at it across the board, and certainly when I review the games, when I review the game we won and also review the game we lost, you look at certain things, and there's not much difference between the two teams. And then on any given day, a couple of poor decisions, a couple of errors, and you can find yourself on the losing side.
Colin, I just wonder.
Perhaps in some of the point I make there is probably maybe in some of the other games, both ourselves and Cardiff will be able to get away with that and still come out with a win. But when we play each other, you have to be on your game. So I hope from our point of view, we've got had a pretty settled squad through the season, and hopefully that will go in our favour.
Colin, I was just wondering how the health of women's rugby league is down in the south. Is there many new teams cropping up? Do you hope that the division will expand a little bit next year? Yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure what the division is going to look like next year, if I'm honest. And I think I've been speaking to Tom Brindle and Kat at the RFL about what that's going to look like. I mean, obviously, both ourselves and Cardiff, I would imagine as well. We're very much focused on the task in hand.
Yeah.
But looking ahead to next year, I'm suspecting there'll probably be some reorganisation, which is it's a good thing, because it's a good thing that it's growing organically. And obviously different regions, and even within the region, different teams are growing at different rates. I think that's what's happened. I think Cardiff started the competition in probably a position where they were, way ahead of the rest of us. And it's probably taken us a couple of seasons to get up to speed with them, I think. And I think that both ourselves and Cardiff have pulled away a little bit from where the rest of the game is in the south. So obviously there needs to be some strategic decisions made around what's going to happen with that. How is that going to be grown and matured to get other teams perhaps into the place, where we are.
Colin, I just wondered who's been a couple of your standout performers this year.
Well, that's a horrible question. So I hate picking out people. Like I said, we've had a pretty settled team this year, and I think that's really helped us. It's quite a difficult one to answer without picking out too many. I think in terms of outside backs, Nicole Kennedy is always poses a real threat for us in the centre, and Laura Mueller at fullback. She always makes lots and lots of yards for us every week. In the middle, we've got Ellie Hunt-Payne, who's been really, really consistent for us. But alongside them, there's other players are just consistent week in, week out. And I think when we give out our little, player of the match award after each game, it's always in the past probably gone to the same one or two players. Whereas this year, I think there's been different players winning each week. So I think, across the board, Catherine Salter is another one that springs to mind. She's sort of settled in that loose forward role for us and had an outstanding season. So, the more I talk about it, the more names are coming to my head. But some really good, performances across the board.
Colin, I wish you the best of luck in the up and coming final. I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us. Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Colin.
No problem at all, and thanks for your support and coverage.
Cheers, Colin. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Got to say thanks for Colin joining us there. He took a bit of time out of his very, very busy schedule to fill us on that game, but very excited for his game coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and as well it should be. I think there'll be a lot of eyes on that, especially now that carrot's been dangled and there is that pathway into Super League. It's huge, and for either of those teams to eventually make it into the Super League, it would be great for the competition, especially geographically. It's, team from London or team from Cardiff. Great news.
Yeah, and they're both teams that we've spoke to and covered in the past, so we wish them both luck in the final. Again, we'll be keeping an eye on that fixture and let you know what the final results are. Okay, moving on. Williams Weekly. So it's been announced a couple of days ago that Manly Seagulls have formed a bit of a partnership with Castleford Tigers, and the Williams Weekly this week, which is always a wider discussion point about rugby league and the stories that's going on in and around it. And we sort of posed the question, like, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Obviously, you may say that good things, it gives a different route for our young players to experience NRL and establish themselves in NRL and perhaps play, for much more money and all this kind of stuff. But bad news is, obviously, there's a chance there that we'll lose our young talent. So, Karl, what's your kind of take on this story, good or bad?
Well, on the surface of it sounds like a good idea. Cass are going to be taking an academy team to the Southern Hemisphere every 2 years to get to play down in the Southern Hemisphere. All great experience. They're only going to become better players for it. They're going to be sharing coaching techniques between the two clubs, sharing technology between the two clubs. It all sounds really positive. But then when you think of this bigger picture, there's this like underlying story happening that the NRL is slowly going to take over Super League, and Super League is eventually going to become a feeder sport for the NRL. And this kind of feels like that step towards that, because we're not going to get Manly's top players coming on loan to Castleford.
Why not?
No, it ain't going to happen, mate. You know it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Even in the press conference, it doesn't mention.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention Manly players coming over to play for Cass.
Well, no.
But it does mention Cass players going the other way.
No, but that might not have been spoken about. But it is a possibility if you've got someone at Manly that's kind of not quite an established first teamer, want to get a bit of experience in the British game or whatever, then they can come across. So although they haven't mentioned it, then it
sounds like it's almost like an immigration topic this week. better stay clear of that, mate. No politics on this show.
Yeah. So if you'd summarise it, good or bad?
I'll hold judgment till I see it, really. But put it this way: if this happens between every club, I'll guarantee we're going to become feeder clubs for the NRL. That's what's going to happen. And I tell you what else: if the NRL takes over Super League, which we don't know if that's happening, but there's rumours in there that they're paying an interest in Super League. I mean, certainly with the Vegas trip that's happening, it seems more likely. I think if the NRL takes over Super League, we could have just become a second tier for the NRL, and we almost become their feeder competition, and that's bad for the sport.
Well, I mean, but I think what is good for the sport is we do need to build bridges between the two competitions.
You know 100%.
And we need we almost need a more fluid exchange of talent, but it's got to be both directions, hasn't it? And I think, when we're creating these partnerships between the different clubs and, the different leagues, is that it feels like there needs to be some kind of safety catch. You know what I mean? Like a
yeah.
You can only take there's like a quarter or something like that.
And let's be fair, there is a quarter in there at the minute. You can only take so many overseas players. So yeah, as long as things like that are kept in place, we should be okay. We don't want to see an influx of second-rate Aussies coming into the British game, because it's not going to develop England Rugby League, and it could have a real negative effect.
I do wonder what the take from the players' point of view. Maybe we'll do a bit of digging and try and get the players' point of view and see what they kind of think of it. I'm pretty sure they'll be quite excited for the potential for playing in the NRL.
I'll put this question out to you, actually. Imagine we lose loads of players to the NRL, right? It weakens the British competition, but the England international team end up stronger for it. Would you say that's a positive impact or negative?
I'm struggling to get past. Like you've just sort of said, right, assume we lose loads of players to NRL. Well, that's assuming they freaking want us. That's assuming they want the players from A team Castleford. And I know Castleford's a hotbed of rugby league, of course it is.
Yeah,
and lots of those players,
I was thinking broader than that, but
yeah, I know, but that's years down the line. Like I'm not sure. I think if you had this conversation in Australia, they might be like, well, who would we take? Do you know what I mean?
I think that's rubbish because there's already players.
They're already going
down there, and they're already getting into the NRL clubs.
But how many have been and not established themselves NRL players?
I don't know.
So all I'm saying is I don't know how much toing and froing would change. You know, I love the idea of sharing coaching practices, you know, techniques, procedures, all that kind of. I think that's only going to deepen the depth of both competitions.
Yeah.
And the coaching pool. I think if NRL clubs come back looking at going, oh right, okay. They get first-hand view of young coaches, young players or whatever, and if that encourages them to go, we'll take a punt, we'll get them in and develop them on our system, you know, it can only deepen it. And I think sometimes in rugby league world, we do focus on the negatives a lot. You know, what if? And I'm just like, well, are we actually just worried about something that chances are it's not going to happen? Like they're certainly not going to rinse our whole competition of strong youth for the NRL because there's only one partnership with Castleford at the minute.
Yeah.
So, you know, but
I'm thinking out of the box. I'm thinking bigger than that.
Yeah, I know you are.
So go back to the question, right?
Right.
Would you rather have a weakened Super League competition where we've lost a load of players to the NRL, but it gives us a stronger international team because we've got players playing down the NRL?
I don't think you can have a strong international without a strong domestic game.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I get, in theory, I know exactly what you're saying. And it's an exciting prospect, but
a lot of players that have gone down to the NRL from Super League clubs have ended up ripping it up, and they've actually come back better players. George Williams is one example.
Yeah,
better player. John Bateman, better player from going down the NRL. All the Burgess brothers, all better players from going down the NRL. So that's what I'm saying. It would probably strengthen the England club at the international side, but it would weaken the domestic competition, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we need to
worry too much about it at this stage.
No, we're going to say that. I was going to say I don't think we need to, you know, dilute the domestic game. You know, like crowds are slightly up this year for most teams. You know what I mean? It's been a very, very exciting season to date. You know, to start leeching a lot of the, you know, exciting talent from it is a bad thing. My only thing is, do they want us? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure they will, mate. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. So anyway, interesting point. I wonder what your take on this. Do you see it as a good thing or a bad thing? You know, there is, like Karl has kind of put across, there's always lots of worry about the NRL taking our great talent. Don't forget that we need to create a competition where our talent wants to stay. You know, I'm thinking the likes of Harry Newman. You know what I mean? It's been offered
money, isn't it?
Yeah, well, money, big clubs, big opportunities. That's what we need to be presenting our players to encourage them to stay, rather than head off down there for more money. And you know, and some players have been like a bit part player on teams and not really featured.
It's almost like we need to grow the game and spread it. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Therefore,
exactly
the Magic Weekend shouldn't be at Elland Road.
That's it.
That's a perfect place to finish.
Okay, so like I said, if you've got your take on this or any of the stories, please stick them in the comments section below. And I just want to put a big thank you out to all those people that have watched over the last couple of weeks. We've seen a lot of growth in our big push to 1,000 subscribers, which we're hoping to hit this week. So please help us out with that. Hit the subscribe button. That just lets us know that we're giving you interesting stories from an interesting point of view and stories that other people aren't really tackling. So, Karl, what are we looking forward to this week?
Have we got the Troy Perkins episode coming out this week?
Well, I fucking hope so.
I've been promising it for the last 2 weeks and we haven't dropped it because we've been so busy. So that will come out this week. It's a great episode, so stay tuned.
Yeah, okay. And as always, Karl, any final words?
No, mate.
Brilliant. So until next week, take care.